Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, good morning. Hello. All right. I was going to do a quick poll before we started, actually. Hands up if you work agency side in a consultancy. Some people. Hands up if you work in-house, work for a brand company. Slightly less people. Hands up if you're here because the room you wanted to go to was too full. Oh, that's a good sign. All right, great. Brilliant. We'll kick off. If you could flip over to my laptop, that'd be appreciated. Smooth, right? Thank you. Okay, so this is our session with the super exciting name of Not Provided, Measuring Paid and Organic Search. I want to introduce the people who are on stage with me. Ben was 10 years ago, created Amplify Interactive in Portland, search marketing agency, and they recently joined forces with Ad3 here in Seattle, and you couldn't want a smarter pair of companies to join together. So that's going to be really exciting. Ian founded Portent Interactive over 10 years ago?
15 years.
Over 15 years.
18 years ago.
Wow. They're based here in Seattle as well. You can tell we're a West Coast crowd. He consistently creates some of the best presentations I see at conferences and online as well, so apologies that he wasn't responsible for any slides or the deck today. Stephen has been working for Group M companies for over 10 years, now runs the SEO team for Catalyst here in Seattle, and finally I'm Rob. I've been with Distilled for 5 or 6 years now, and I look after our consultants and creatives and our content strategists. I give you that bit of introduction to say that the four of us work for smart agencies, smart people. We work with smart people as well. And hopefully if you've got some search questions later on, then feel free to ask them. We'll give you plenty of chances to ask us about all the search questions that have been on your mind. Just to firmly establish that credibility for us, I went through our Twitter feeds and picked out some real gems so you can get inside our head and understand. Stephen said, weird, only men at the supermarket this morning. There must be something going on. Yeah.
It was Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Nobody told us about this.
Old men and
Ben was
children.
crunk at the SEM PDX party.
He went back to August to find us.
Yeah.
Crunk.
I didn't let myself off easy. Maybe more people should use the pubs up hubbub protocol. Then we'd all get to say pubs up hubbub more often. I'm regretting this. I left Ian till last. Ian's wondering, oh shit. He's a smart guy. But when a puppy in mid-poo is suddenly accosted by another puppy, the result is not pretty.
Just happened last week.
If you don't have a reason to follow us all on Twitter now, I don't understand what I've done wrong. Okay, very briefly, I wanted to introduce the session. We'll be talking more about tracking and measurement later on, but first I just want to spend a couple of minutes covering Not Provided. It's a topic that we've been asked to share some thoughts on, and it's something that's been important to us for the last 12 or 18 months, or actually getting on for 2 years now. Brief background for people who, what's he talking about, Not Provided? You search the web, you type in conferences in Seattle, and you see the search results. What's that second result you see? Seattle Interactive. Looks fantastic. Boop! Click on the result, and you head over to Seattle Interactive Conferences webpage. This happens a billion times a second. Lots of people searching and clicking on links, and everything happens. And in the background, we're collecting tons of data. I gave examples of some of the type of data that you're collecting on people, what browser are they using, where's the user, which page did they land on, which search engine were they using, what was the search term they searched for. All this information can be collected or is sent to the website, so Seattle Interactive would know all of these things and many more about me when I went through that process of searching and clicking. Obviously, you can aggregate all that data. Here's some example for a couple of month period for a site, on the which page did they visit, you can aggregate it to say, oh, here's how many page views each of those pages got. You can also aggregate those keywords. How many people searched for Modern Christmas songs or Rob Ousbey or whatever else. Except the recent changes that Google have made have said, you know what? We might not let that information leak to the web page. We might not let the web page know what someone was on Google and searching for. Which means that second bunch of data I showed, the what keywords drove traffic to my site, is now becoming invisible to me. I don't know what people were looking for when they found me. I know they were going through search. I know they used Google. I don't know what they typed in. And so this is how it's going to show up in our search result, in our analytics now, depending on your analytics package. This vague not provided. In fact, right up there is the number one term that lots of people will see in their analytics. And the question is, how long will that exist alongside a bunch of other search terms? And the answer is that the amount of searches which don't bring that information with them is increasing. When it originally launched, Google made the somewhat, unfortunately, prophetic comment about it'll never reach double-figure percentages, which it did within 20 weeks after, and recently we saw a jump close to 100%. And so, within the foreseeable future, there will be none of that information being passed from Google to your website. If people find you through Google, you just won't know what they were looking for, how and how they discovered you. And that's where I would like to begin with our beautiful piggy bull. There we go. Oh, also we have a wonderful hashtag, the slightly obfuscated SIC SEO panel. So feel free to quote us and talk about how handsome these guys are and misquote us and everything else. All right, guys. So not provided, close to 100% now. What do you think the biggest problem is going to cause us is? Because we were looking at that data beforehand, right? And what are you going to miss most about not having it?
It's almost impossible now to prove that we're doing our jobs because for all we know, all the searches are coming in on branded searches, and clients just cannot let go of knowing what keywords are generating the traffic, and that really makes our lives harder. And if you're in-house, of course, it's going to make your life harder with your boss.
Yeah, definitely proving out is going to be the biggest issue. It's going to be, there's still some data you can get from Google Webmaster Tools, so they aggregate data and let you know what search terms people have been using to get to your site and what URLs they're actually getting to as well. So basically that does join up all the data, but let's assume that you're dealing with a fairly large website with a big number of queries. Joining up that data is the hard part. So they provide some of that data with through the API to Google Webmaster Tools, so you can go in and collect it, but they do not, I believe, currently let you get each URL, the information for each URL. And actually that URL is where you would pivot the data so that you could join it up to your web analytics. And that's not going to be the same as being able to get have that full picture that you used to have through our analytics, i.e. that Rob came to the website and converted or didn't convert on a specific keyword going through a specific page. But you can get a more general idea of, okay, 75% of the keywords that were used to get to this page were the same one term. So let's go with a 75% confidence that these conversions happened on that keyword. So,
yeah. I think I have an overwhelming urge to use a British accent right now. But, I think, well, I mean, it's obvious, right? Like the clarity of data. So it's, to your point specifically, like, oh, this keyword, this page, this is what's working, and to Ian, being able to show, like, we're trying to help gain authority or credibility or whatever in this space, and like we're look at all these things that we're owning in this category. Now you can only point to your content, which has its landing pages, which has its extreme drawbacks as well. If you're not able to read the tea leaves appropriately, I guess. So
one of the things that I worry most about is losing that sense of what's branded and what's not branded, because then you've not even just got search marketers and SEOs who are in the dark, but PR people and brand people as well. Like, we don't know if people were searching for Seattle Interactive Conference and hitting the conference website, or searching for best event in Seattle,
right,
and finding us through discovering the conference for the first time.
Well, in Google Webmaster Tools, the keyword data in there, we've studied it for a few months now, and it doesn't even seem to, it's not accurate, but it also doesn't even seem to be consistently inaccurate.
Right.
So that, you can't just say it's always 40% off. It'll be 40% under 1 month, 60% over the next. It's very hard to figure out exactly how they're measuring.
Yeah, it's almost like I don't know, the Google, right? It's almost like they really, really, really don't want you to know what keywords are working unless you pay for it, right? And so that's a whole other part of this I'm sure we'll get into. But
Conspiracy theory.
yeah,
this is
exactly.
not the
Let's do
tinfoil
that.
hat
There's
panel,
nothing
so-
more fun about a not provided panel than just bitching about not provided in Google. Like I mean, really the answers are, there's a lot of answers I think, but ultimately, even like you were saying, Google Webmaster Tools data. I don't want to say completely useless, but fairly useless. But and I think Avinash did a post recently and where he was talking about not provided, but he also showed like these keywords have nothing to do with most of what's happening that I can see in my Google Analytics data or could see in my Google Analytics data, so they're not meshing up. Then the other thing about landing page level data is like, one of my guys a couple years ago wrote this post, like, I actually wrote two that are he's kind of a wingnut guy, and he's really good SEO, but he would also do things like, what we can all learn from chocolate-covered gummy bears or whatever, right? And we got a ridiculous amount of search traffic for chocolate-covered gummy bears. And if I never knew what the keyword was that was driving that, and I just looked at you see the landing page data, and you're like, God, this post is crushing it. Everybody cares about, it wasn't about chocolate-covered gummy bears. It was how he was drawing some sort of weird comparison to search. But you would think that topic was the one that resonated, unless you can see, there's like a 99% bounce rate, and most people were just coming for the image or whatever. So.
Right, but that's actually an interesting point too, because the way that Google has started to work, they're looking more at what you've been searching for, and if it's a progressive next step in a search. So if they find that 75% of the people that search for SIC then search for a Seattle Interactive Conference, then it's a predictor. So that's not a good example at all. I need something.
Well, if you search for find me a place in Seattle for good pizza,
right.
Google will figure out that place means restaurant based on your previous searches. That's Google Hummingbird. And by the way, no one's been penalized under Hummingbird because Hummingbird doesn't have any penalties. So don't worry about that. You've probably been penalized under the bigger animals, penguin and panda.
Right, and the point of my failed point was that the second query might be for a really non-specific term that you don't see yourself ranking for, but you might have the relevance based on the prior query, which is why it's tricky to say, all right, now we have this query coming in for, well, in your case it was actually chocolate-covered gummy bear, but not necessarily a helpful indicator to what you should or could be optimizing your website for.
So from a tactical perspective, how much would you recommend people or your clients don't even think about what terms do we want to rank for? Here's a term with a bunch of searches, or even here's a long tail set of stuff that we could be visible for, and now let's go and figure out how to optimize content for it and promote it in one way or another.
Am I allowed to gloat? Can I gloat?
Gloat all you want
Okay.
to.
Yeah, we've been telling clients this for about 8 years, and I'm sure everyone up here has been telling clients this for about 8 years, because the keyword that sends traffic to your site isn't as important as a broader topic area. So we've been trying to tell clients to let go of that for a long, long time. There's a lot of other ways to get insight, and I'm assuming we're going to get to that, so I won't go into it now.
Just to put one question to bed, I guess, is can we get that data back? People look at not provided and say, there must be a way. So you've talked about Webmaster Central. But
yeah, I think you can patch it together, but I think it's a matter of time. If people start patching it together, all of a sudden the URLs will be gone. So
I think it's a bad idea to try to make guesses on that anyway. I did see one hack that I thought was pretty useful. It's I forget where it was. I posted a Bitly bundle to my awesome Blizzle hash or username there. But ultimately, he did something where you set a filter that would basically break apart the not provided traffic data and show you which landing pages not provided was driving traffic to. Meaning, so instead of just a giant not provided, it would be like you would set it up so it would show you not provided page A, page B, page C. So then you could at least get an idea of where that traffic's going. But it's no different than really looking at your landing page traffic. But I don't think there's any way to get it back except something from Webmaster Tools and ranking data.
You could do a Mission Impossible thing into Google, I guess, and steal the data, but that's about it.
Okay, so given that those all are clearly kind of half-assed solutions, and
Exactly.
sorry, yeah,
it's funny because it's true.
yeah. Are there other things that you're going to take this opportunity to recommend? Like, guys, you can't focus on that. you should be tracking or measuring other stuff instead? What do you feel is most valuable for people to be focusing on from that broad kind of keyword organic traffic arena at the moment?
So we're looking at 3 things right now. One is, if you're a fairly well-trafficked site, look at on-site search. What are people searching for on your site? Because if you can optimize your site around on-site terms, you're actually going to up your conversion rates and probably help with search. Excuse me. We're looking at TF-IDF scoring, so it's a computerized way to figure out the most relevant terms page by page, and you can track that over time. So instead of looking at the keywords generating traffic to your pages, look at the things your pages are about and see which of those pages get the highest engagement and the most traffic. And then the third thing is, and this is a little touchy-feely, but we're looking at this thing called the idea graph. We're looking for how social media is responding and the words that they're using and things they say when they're sharing our content. And if a major topic among all the social media shares is one particular phrase, we're going to attribute that to a traffic driver for that page. And we're going to say, okay, if it's driving engagement here, it's probably driving engagement in SEO, in organic search, so we're going to test that and look a little deeper.
Can you give us an example there? What do you test? What sort of value do you try and get from that?
So we would pull down, say, all the tweets that cited a particular page on our site or a client site, and we would pull out the most dominant 2- and 3-word phrases, for example. And then we would say, okay, we had a surge over time in tweets sharing this content. And we would compare that to organic search traffic and say, do we see a similar surge in time in organic search traffic coming to that page? And if we can match them up, and yeah, this is not hard science, obviously, but if we can match them up and look at TF-IDF scoring and say the page was highly relevant to that phrase, and we see on-site search data, that's 3 really good indications that we can put together.
Totally scalable and easy to do daily. Right,
yeah, it's no problem. It's no problem.
And presumably it's going to skew to what you've optimized for anyway, right? So,
well,
if anyone's going to your page and actually hitting the tweet this button, they're going to get your title tag, which is presumably what you've already optimized your page for.
That would be the hope, and then you also look at the sentiment of the tweets and other comments. We'll often pull out title tags and stuff and just look at other things people are saying. Often it's just things like, great, and it doesn't really help very much. But we do try to look at that and see what else is generating the traffic.
Yeah, and you mentioned before, like, is the keyword dead? I mean, it can't be. At the end of the day, you still have to optimize your site for something, but I totally agree that we should be focusing on content areas. So what are the areas you want to win when you're creating a content strategy, working out what questions it is that you're answering for the consumer, and then where that takes them on the purchase path.
Well, and the other half of the idea graph is looking for topics that are connected only by the people who are interested in them. So what we call random affinities. So if you have 2 topics that are completely disconnected, like chocolate-covered gummy bears and high-performance car racing, if you can see those 2 things line up, that becomes a topic set that you can optimize for, even though you would not necessarily know at this point that those keywords are driving traffic to your site.
Yeah, I think the most powerful or the most readily available thing to look at is, and it's a big discussion, right? Like, in a lot of ways, not provided, I feel like, is going to save us from ourselves or SEOs from themselves. That being said, it made it extremely difficult to not scrape rankings, and stuff like that that's helpful. But I think in Google Analytics alone, and it's an area that not a lot of people are familiar with or comfortable with, is just like the multi-channel funnel stuff and the assists and understanding organic search's role in driving a sale or a conversion. Because I think ultimately, with that lack of granular information on this keyword phrase drove X, you can see, man, organic search is actually a great awareness channel for us. So it kind of starts to inform your content strategy. Like, what sort of content really resonates to help us drive awareness? But later on, people just direct type in and convert, which would have never gotten credit in the past for organic search. So I think that area of Google Analytics alone is really, really powerful. But again, when you sit down and you across from 30 different clients and maybe you'll get 3 of them that'll be just fine with, like, sounds good, and the other 27 will say, but keywords, right? I mean, and that's really it.
Why am I not number 1 for car?
Right.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Do you have any particular examples of clients who've done something a bit different or very worthwhile in terms of stuff they've been tracking either as a very early leading indicator or looking at that path to final conversion, and people who've got value out of good metrics and good analytics recently.
If you guys have any, I'd love to steal them from you, because all of our clients are still saying we don't rank for X or Y. That's just the way it is right now. Is they're very tunnel vision, and it's just starting to change a little. But in large part, we have clients who are just saying, well, but now we can't track this. What's our ROI?
And again, this is where we are going to have to do some joining up of the data. So let's look at if there are a consistent set of pages, large e-commerce sites aside, a consistent set of pages where people are converting and converting from, then we need to try and match that up with the Webmaster Tools data. We know that the Webmaster Tools data, the actual numbers aren't accurate, but they do give enough information. We've been looking at a lot of playing with the data that is available within Webmaster Tools to try and segment it out, look at the types of keywords that we've been trying to optimize for, where are the gaps, so that we can play out the full content strategy so that the brands that we're working with understand what they need to do in terms of content to help rank and drive people further through their purchase funnel.
Well, and actually, I lied. We do have one. They're Fortune 500, and it's the only Fortune 500 we have. I'm not bragging, just so you know. But they actually did do some random affinity research. We did some timelines and other kinds of really kind of deep interactive content for them that was really tying together a random affinity with their product. And that actually worked really, really well, and it was very easy to see how well it produced, because from the day the content went live and the day we started promoting it, we saw organic search go up. So it did actually work in that respect.
Ian's written a fair bit about his random affinities processes and thoughts. There's some good decks up on SlideShare.
Yeah, I'm basically pimping my own ideas, sorry.
Search for random affinities, and I pretty much guarantee you'll find Ian's content. You mentioned I'm going to get the acronym wrong, but TDIDF, which...
TFIDF.
TFIDF. Just to avoid blowing people's minds with too much hard science, but it's stuff that we've been talking about for probably 2 or 3 years now in the context of the way Google is assessing sites for topics and the broad categories they're about. But have you found a way to move on with that and push people to assess their own sites?
We don't have a tool yet that lets people assess their own sites. We've done a lot of work on scaling it. It's not as complicated as it seems. TF stands for term frequency, which is just keyword density. Inverse document frequency is how many times the keyword occurs throughout the entire website and the number of pages on which it occurs. I can't even do the math myself. I just type it into Excel and it does it for me. But yeah, we've been working a lot on making it scale, because if you have a 10,000 page site, the calculations get pretty hairy. And we're just starting to get there.
And the premise of it is to make you an expert on a topic. Is that? What's the tool do?
You mean make me an expert on TFID? No,
not you personally.
No, the premise is that you can figure out what terms you're optimizing pages for incidentally as opposed to doing it intentionally. And then you can look and say, we're optimized right now for pizza place, but pizza restaurant is really what we know drives more traffic because we looked at Google AdWords. So we should probably change it so that the 2-word phrase that occurs most often on these 3 pages is pizza restaurant. The other thing it does is it ties together sets of pages. So you can take an entire section of the site and say, okay, the TF-IDF score for one phrase, pizza restaurant, is much higher in this one area, this one hub, but it's way the heck over here because it's on the blog, and of course no one ever wants the blog close to their brand, right? They want to put it 25,000 miles away. And by looking at that, you can say, all right, we need to bring that closer to other pages that we're trying to make relevant to that phrase.
We'll move on in a second and talk some more about the recent things that have changed to search on the organic side, on the paid side. But I wanted to give people a chance, just if you have any questions to ask about tracking or measurement or things that have happened in analytics recently. There's some fun stuff with multi-channel attribution and multi-device, or not provided. I guess not provided must be having caused some pain for people. But if there's any questions for the team right now, stick your hand up or feel free. Yeah, go ahead.
They asked if you could come use the mic. I was just going to say. Not that that's awkward or anything, walking in for,
like most questions, I just need you to validate an assumption for me, because you guys are real smart. Here's my assumption. Google's going to start selling its non-provided data. No?
I don't think so, and here's why. I think there's two reasons they did not provide it. One, they really don't like people optimizing for keywords, but two, they're a little freaked out about the European Union and some of the things they've been doing around privacy, and they're very concerned about stuff that's going on in the US as well, because they are under investigation from a few different big, bodies. So I don't think they will ever do it, because people are already pointing at them saying this is totally hypocritical because you have all the data there, you're just not releasing it to us. I would be very surprised if they ever released it.
They also have the proposal out for basically stopping using cookies as well. So shock horror that someone who has its users logged in X% of the time is perfectly happy to get rid of cookies. So it's going to be a tough market for small businesses. I mean, you're going to end up with Amazon, Google, Microsoft, maybe Yahoo. What else do people log into? I guess social media sites, Facebook, they're going to be the people that can predominantly track you. So how are you going to, like Google's change to with not provided, stopped people using their data for retargeting, for example, because you can't retarget on the keyword.
Yeah. I think, well, ultimately, I think you're right. Like, there's no way that's. I mean, this is all altruistic, right? There's no monetary incentive to hide organic keyword referral data. Again, I'm not really a conspiracy guy. I just think it's fun.
Sure.
But yeah, ultimately, I mean, that's been the driver for a lot of this. Is like, oh, let's get out in front of this before we get in big trouble.
I do have a conspiracy theory about not provided. Is this appropriate?
It's time.
Yeah. All right. So Ian gave some very realistic reasons why not provided might have occurred. I wasn't going to talk about this today. My theory was that you hit a page, comes with referral data, including the keywords if you come via a search engine. That page and any JavaScript running on the page knows about those details. I don't know what the stats are, but 80 or 90% of the pages trafficked on the web probably have Facebook JavaScript installed, either in the form of a like button or whatever else. Facebook, assuming you're logged in fact, even if you're not logged in, but at some point log in on that computer, can then not just see every page you visit, but every page that has referred you to those pages you visit, which means that before not provided existed, Facebook could tell what you searched for. Facebook could know more about you than Google ever did, because they knew what you searched for and they knew what you were visiting. And I wouldn't be surprised if Google knew that Facebook have the potential to do that and want to keep your search terms out of Facebook's hands.
Well, and it's really interesting because Google's not trying to build a search engine; they're trying to build a platform, right, that goes everywhere. And their biggest competitor in this is Facebook. And Facebook, by the way, just stopped letting you buy paid advertising that pointed at a Google Plus page. And they admitted flat out it's a competitive thing. So yeah, that's actually, I don't think that's a conspiracy theory. I think that makes a lot of sense, actually. Wow, that's kind of spooky too.
Right? And if Facebook weren't doing that, then what a massive trick they were missing.
Yeah.
But all right. Any other conspiracy theories? Was there any other questions about tracking or measurement or analytics before? Yeah, go ahead.
Do I really have to go to the microphone?
We'll repeat the question for you.
But presumably there's the potential, right, that Google makes money off of our content, right? It's fair use because they refer, because they provide reference to it. I think there starts to become a pretty good argument that says they're running afoul of fair use by not providing us the information which led to the referral, right? So do you guys feel that there's, you've got big paid search players like eBay, Expedia, and the likes, right? Who spend a lot of money with Google, right? But also potentially, can turn the spigot off, right? Can start to press from a legal standpoint, right? So you made the point about the issues with regulation in Europe and those sorts of things. Presumably, not provided is just making that case worse, right?
I'll repeat the question for the people at the back. Yeah, Google relies on the web existing in order for itself to exist and makes money off the virtue, and you could think of it as fair use. Is this damaging some of that tacit agreement? And how are the big players going to handle it as well?
I can't imagine they'll do anything but turn around and say, you've got a robots.txt file, feel free to block us. I mean, and that's not going to help, right?
Bite the hand that feeds.
But I think you're right, it becomes an antitrust issue, and I'd be very surprised if the FTC wasn't sniffing around Google. They probably have been for 8 years, but this does not help. This absolutely does not help. And I think Facebook is going to start getting themselves in trouble too if they don't let you buy ads pointing at other platforms and channels. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, they're still the one group that holds all the data. You know, Google Analytics, again, had plenty of conspiracy theories around that. But they still could have all that data. Like originally when they first did not provide it, it was only for users that were logged into their platform. So those were people that they could 100% pass that data or store that data elsewhere and know exactly where it went, particularly if the website was using Google Analytics. So,
you mentioned GA, and Google Analytics is a favorite amongst a lot of people, free version now, paid version as well. Are there any other particular tools you guys recommend for tracking or measurement or analytics?
Nothing that's not home built, like, but ultimately, no. I mean, my favorite things are like I was saying, the multi-channel stuff in Google Analytics, and then also, I mean, rankings tracking is super helpful again, just to get a feel for what's going on. I think webmaster tools and frankly AdWords.
I really like tools that give share of voice measurement. Sure. So advanced web ranking, Brightcove is not inexpensive. I think Conductor does it, and Moz may do it soon. But anything that can do share of voice is pretty useful because you can, again, track relative share of voice, which is just the total amount of times you show up compared to the total amount of times everybody shows up for a particular phrase, for a particular topic, whatever else.
And it's a metric that it's more comfortable for people who aren't web marketers, I'll say. Yeah. So traditional media folks are used to hearing share of voice. They maybe understand what it means more.
In some senses, that's not a terrible thing to be optimizing for either, right? No. Like, that's quite reasonable to want that number to be bigger, which at least is something we can prove we're doing our jobs, right? So, so like I said before, you know, the last 6 or 12 months, maybe the last couple of years, in fact, it's been an interesting time to be working in search marketing. Things have changed faster than they probably were for 5 years preceding that. Just thinking about the last couple of months, I mean, yes, Panda and Penguin are still causing some problems and being tweaked as the way Google's algorithms in particular are. But Hummingbird is the new thing, the trendy thing. Do you guys want to talk a bit about what that's actually going to mean for us on a day-to-day basis? If there's anything website owners, webmasters, brands, or agencies should be doing differently right now because of it?
Well, it actually means that if we were getting keyword data, it would mean a lot less, because Hummingbird is going to bring lots of different keyword queries together and kind of bunch them up. So thinking topically would be important. Again, think of the example pizza place versus pizza restaurant, car versus auto versus automobile versus cars versus Porsche versus, Edsel or something. Those are all words relating to the same thing. You would start getting lots of queries driving traffic to your site, much more dispersed query sets, and it actually might be harder to get that data. So if I can do sour grapes, maybe, without not provided, we would be going after the wrong data. Who knows?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, as far as things you should do differently, well, I think Mike left, but Mike does a lot about, and actually it's a practice we've kind of adopted as well, about developing target audience personas. I mean, ultimately, what it boils down to Ian's point, is that they're kind of bundling searches, or it's a lot of semantic stuff, right? So this means the same thing as that, and instead of showing you a different query, like, we might as well just show you the thing that we think is best, ultimately, right? So developing the best content is really what matters, and you can focus a lot less on a particular phrase, I'll say. But ultimately, like, I think understanding who your target audience is, why you're developing content, what they would find useful, where it fits, and really just sort of building around that is ultimately helping support this, or helping to serve this idea of, who cares if you say pizza restaurant or pizza place, it should all be the same thing.
Google did go through a phase of, Google decided to start favoring brands a year or so ago, and, bigger the brand, and you can define brand in different ways, but they were able to recognize who was a brand and give them more visibility in search, which the little guys would deem somewhat unfair. Do you think Hummingbird does the same for a certain type of site? Like we were talking earlier, medical queries. If you're the Mayo Clinic or WebMD or something, you're going to get way more visibility now than you may have done previously. Is this skewing the weights again further in the favor of a certain type of site that Google likes?
Yeah, I mean, it's skewing for authority, which they're deeming through a lot of different channels. So obviously they're looking at what people are saying, what you've written, what's been tweeted, but they're just trying to decide what is the authoritative source. And there's a fairly unfortunate example yesterday with the St. Louis Cardinals, because someone went and edited in a fairly unfriendly way their Wikipedia page, and sure enough, when you search for St. Louis Cardinals, it points out what they like to do in their free time, apparently.
God, the internet, trolls in the internet are never going away.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
So that's taking a site that was deemed authoritative, but that anyone has access to go in and edit. So they have this real issue with what they're claiming as an authoritative site. And obviously, Mayo Clinic, great on the case of medical sites. But that's the only site I've really seen have a hard time with Hummingbird was a friend who has like a everyday health website, and so it talks about medical conditions, and I'm sure it's the same for the Amgens of the world as well, that are talking about specific conditions, because they're really getting pushed further and further down by knowledge graph and by specific answers that Google are providing based on authoritative websites, or what they deem as authoritative.
Anyone who knows me will be shocked, but I have a slightly different opinion. To me, Hummingbird only impacted the way that Google handles queries as far as semantic matching of phrases. So yeah, it's true, if you have a really large site, you may do better because you have more semantic matches of more different phrases, but I'm actually not sure Hummingbird's going to have that profound an effect. I do think the knowledge graph is going to have a profound effect. I do think things like in-depth content is going to have a profound effect, but I'm not sure those are part of Hummingbird. That's the only thing I would say. And I could be totally wrong, just so you know.
They launched them ambiguously close and similarly.
I saw it show up about a month and a half ago, which is when they said they launched Hummingbird.
When you think about the knowledge graph, then, you'd perhaps argue for depth and quality over quantity of thinner articles, but does that feel like, that's what Google would like us to do. Hopefully we as web users want that from sites as well. Does this support that, or do you think there's going to be other tactics for being ahead of the knowledge graph curve?
I just think Google has this picture of a perfect website in its mind, and the closer you can get to that perfect website, the better. So instead of thinking about specific algorithm changes, think about the things that make a website perfect: speed, quality of navigation, clarity of content, ease of classification of pages, amount of authority, ease of sharing. Think about those things. It's your distance from that perfect site that's going to impact how you rank and win.
It's that simple.
Yeah, that's it. It's only about 200,000 million different things that you have to tweak on your site. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree that on the semantic side, it's like how do you mark up your pages? It's obviously the content, and there are basic SEO things that have been going on for the last 10, 12 years that, optimize your pages, look at the content, all the rest of it. Now some of it's on the more technical side. Obviously, it was always technical if there were technical issues preventing indexation, but now it's looking a little bit more at how do you classify it, was how you put it. So schema markup, all those types of things are really going to help with Google to understand what your content, your pages is about.
Yeah, I think that schema markup is, well, especially when it comes to knowledge graph, and you start to see it. I have this thing. I really hate it when Google takes clicks away. I'll say, meaning we got this content to rank, but guess what? They're just showing it all on the homepage, or whether it's even if you do local SEO, they have they'll put in a carousel, and now they take the click away and they just show all the info on their own site. Or the image results, they did the same thing, and they've actually done it a couple different times in the past. And I think it's great to go and do all that all the things that help you become an authority and to mark up your content as such, et cetera. And they really, and everybody knows, at least to date, if you do those things, you get better click-through rates for the stuff that's already ranking, et cetera. But then also, you may be shooting yourself in the foot if all you're looking at is traffic. So share of voice is a really good good alternative, I guess. But if you're looking at traffic from organic search, and then all of a sudden it evaporates because they just started to show it on their homepage instead, or on the results page.
Didn't realize you did the optimization for Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Would you trust an encyclopedia that Ben could edit? It's tough.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust me either.
So it's interesting when we talk about things like the local search results, some embedded image search results, things that Google are changing that are diminishing the visibility of organic search results. A big one from the last week, I guess, is a big change to their potential change to their paid search, which is these banner ads that they're now testing on very branded search queries. And we've seen a few examples of them in the wild already. I don't know how much Google have said about what partners that they're actually testing this with at the moment. But you've been looking into this, Steve.
I think there are about 30 partners, but it's a fairly short list. Virgin America, Southwest.
The way these things manifest themselves, if you search for Southwest and you're part of the test, you'll see some paid ads up at the top, and then a huge block with like a massive banner, a visual banner of Southwest branding, then some paid links to Southwest, and then some organic results taking up, what is it, possibly the bottom 15% of the page, some organic sneaking in there, and that's only the brand anyway. Wow, we can now look at a Google results page and not see any Google results, not see any organic results.
Yeah, it's one that's gonna be interesting to see as and when it rolls out, if it does roll out. The potential, so there are things like Southwest where you're only going to be buying on their website anyway, but then when you start thinking about other brands, Microsoft, Beats by Dre, any of those that sell their products elsewhere, you've got this immediate benefit to the brand, which do they deserve? Yes, possibly. But then, as a consumer, are you looking to buy from the brand, or are you just looking for the lowest price for the same product? So that there's some interesting ground there that they'll have to cover.
Yeah. I think you'll see it's mostly brand. I'd be surprised if it was they would only do things like that for branded search, meaning like Southwest, like you were saying, Southwest. You're looking to buy on Southwest anyway, so it's like people that navigate using Google, right? Like you could have typed in the URL, but you Googled Southwest.com instead. But I think they have a long history of trying to eliminate the middleman in the first place, like in that. If you're an OEM and you make the product, but you can resell it, or you have lots of other outlets, and all they're doing is pulling products together and reselling them. And Amazon's an outlier, but I mean ultimately they really like to get rid of those people that are in the middle of that transaction. So if you can sell direct, they would much rather. It feels like they would much rather have you sell direct than have things be sold by other people just because they can sell them. Amazon's a different case, I think, because they've become so good at the transaction, I'll say. But
how much is that Google trying to maximize their profits, make things as through Google as possible, and how much is actually, they're basically the front page of the internet. If you give people a good experience on Google, you're giving people a good experience of the web, so they're actually helping everybody, and that's what people want, or is it a bit of a balance of both?
Going public, doing their IPO basically ruined Google. And now they have to maximize profit, even if it's at the expense of whatever their goal and vision are. But I got to say, this is something we don't really control. I mean, we can't do anything to change our clients' sites or do anything like that to affect this right now. For the folks in the audience, don't expend too much energy worrying about this just yet. Start worrying about it if it starts intruding on your space.
Were you going to say something, Ben?
I was going to say, sooner or later, the not provided thing, just from a report, I mean, this panel is about, reporting and measurement, and like, how are we going to deal with that? I don't know that anybody has a perfect answer yet, frankly, but, and the guys that are maybe up here or some of our real forward-thinking SEO friends are coming up with answers, but ultimately your tool vendor will figure it out.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just talking about the really big banner thing.
Sorry.
Not provided, just the really big banner thing.
Okay. Further on paid search, there's a bunch of other stuff's happened there recently. Not particularly my bag. I've been very organically invested for years, but enhanced campaigns, some more semantic things they're doing. Are these good opportunities for people to push more money through paid search?
Enhanced campaigns were basically because Google was getting ticked off because nobody was buying mobile advertising. Sorry, that's why they did it, because it enhances Google's revenue. That's why it's called enhanced campaigns. But
Yeah, it takes a lot of flexibility away from the way you can structure those things.
That's the other side, is with the not provided, there's the sort of suggestion, that Google's doing it just to fatten their pockets, so that more people will buy paid search in order to get insights into what users are searching for at the keyword level and what they're converting for. Now, I think that's a stretch. I mean, I think usually it's relatively rare that you're going to send people to the same page on the paid basis as you might have had them come on the organic side. So a lot of the time with paid, you're going to end up working with a walled garden if it's a specific purchase funnel you're trying to push them through. So it's not necessarily going to be the same page. So I'm not sure I see the value. A lot of people have been talking about how to, I think it was understand the content based on your paid keyword search buy. And I don't buy it.
Okay. I want to ask one question and give people some stuff to go away and hopefully think about. You can percolate and be excited to get back to the office on Wednesday or Thursday and put some stuff into action. People like us have probably spent the last 2, 3, 4 years or longer sat at conferences, sat in rooms with clients and saying, yeah, we're SEOs, but actually the stuff you should be doing is great content, great stuff that appeals to users. It's like, yeah, we could optimize some pages for this and that's fantastic, but it's short-termist and there's more impactful, more long-term things we can do. Hopefully we're being justified a little bit more in that now, and Google's proven that we were kind of right all along in some cases.
well, you can have the best content in the world, but if your site repels Google the same way Gore-Tex repels water, it doesn't really matter. So I guess what I would say is, again, it's, yeah, don't write crap, right? This is just marketing, all right? Deliver value. The first investment a customer makes when they come to your website is the time they took to click and come to your website. Just like when someone walks in the door to a Starbucks, they're investing the time to walk in the door. You must give an immediate return on that investment. That's good content. Now that also happens to work really well for SEO, but for anybody out there who thinks I must produce 100 posts per month or per quarter, that's not the way to think about it. Think about that return on time invested, and think about making sure that your site actually works, because that's kind of important too.
So I was going to ask what you think are the most underinvested in tactics at the moment. Where do you feel like people are generally missing an opportunity?
Infrastructure. 99% of the sites I look at for anything, PPC, doesn't matter, are terrible for conversion. They run really slow. They error out very easily. They don't scale. Wow. On the other hand, it looks like the client really put a lot of effort into it. I should just say that. They'll accidentally have things that create massive content duplication on the site. There are so many things that tactically clients don't take advantage of that, big or small, an e-commerce business could immediately get a huge competitive advantage if only they would fix some of those things.
Yeah, my favorite ones are when people come to me and you just run a crawl report. You're like, oh man, I'm going to crush it for you in the next six weeks. It's going to be amazing. But just because they aren't doing some of those simple tactical things, I think is a big deal.
It's so tough because agencies or in-house, whoever's building the websites, it's amazing that it's not an initial part of their remit so frequently. That's like having, when you get an agency, a development agency, and they say they're going to do the SEO for you, it's like you immediately have an issue, because how are they really going to keep themselves honest? So,
well, and also you'll get the client, the development agencies who will say, we just built the site and launched it, can you come SEO it now?
I'd like to think that we've got
I got that email yesterday.
good smart audience here, and you surely wouldn't make any of these mistakes. But if people are worrying, like, oh shit, my site might, sorry.
Oh hell.
Can't trust the English.
Oh shucks. What if I'm screwing up in some of the same ways as all these smart big brands that are still able to make trivial errors? Quick things that people could go and look at to make sure they're not just leaving money on the table, just leaving traffic unable to find them.
Grab a sentence from any page on your website, put it in quotes, and search for it on Google. And if you see 5 pages or 10 pages or 5,000 pages from your website that all show up for that one sentence, something is wrong. You need to fix it.
Webmaster Great tip, actually, yeah. Well, Webmaster Tools hooking up analytics data to Webmaster Tools will tell you some of that too. But I think that's the easiest, cheapest solution.
Yep. Or you can do that over lunch, right? And
Right.
then,
That'll help you
I don't know
discover
about-
it. Then you just need to work out how to fix it.
yeah. Discovering is the easy bit, right? I don't want to get too distracted, but you mentioned conversion rate optimization, and we found with a lot of our clients that CRO can be just the money maker when you've got a lot of content and good practices in place, because it's often not been something people have thought about a great deal, and especially early on, some fairly simple CRO tests can bring quite nice return on the investment of time you make. Are there particular ways you've recommended people just getting into CRO, just taking the first step towards getting some value from it?
Make your site faster.
And super SEO tip as well, right? Make it faster. Just getting into it. Well, I sort of hesitate to say focus groups, but like those simple tools out there that are like 5-second test or whatever, and you can just have random people look at a page and say, just ask them, what do you think this is about? Or what do you think we're trying to get you to do? And sometimes the answers are great, like, oh, perfect. And other times it's like, we have a problem.
Well, and you can be a little sneaky. Use Amazon Mechanical Turk and don't actually ask them the question you want answered. Ask them something sort of ancillary to that, and just be ready to analyze their answer in the context of what you actually want to know. That way, because as soon as you start observing people, their behavior changes. So you could send someone to a page and say, please cut and paste the most important sentence on this page and see what you get. It's just one way to kind of slant things a little.
It's nice. And the other thing to think about is if you've got that, why have I completely blanked on what I was going to say? Disaster.
You can think about it for a second, Stephen.
Disaster.
Yeah, I think you're right about some of that snow blindness, almost like whether the client is very invested in their site or whether you've spent a lot of time on it, then just knowing the path to checkout can be second nature to you. And if you literally ask someone else in the office or a buddy, like, sit down and buy something from this website, you can, in 2 minutes, probably discover some of the biggest hurdles to conversion blockers.
And that was the point, was that you don't know necessarily, like a lot of the time when the website's getting built, your agency might be looking at the path that users are going to take through your website. One of the really important things to think of is that with coming in through search, they're not going to start at the start. So what does it mean to a user when they see a specific page at a specific point in time? Because it might be the first time they see the page. Obviously, once you're driving an actual hard purchase, but you might have a progression that you're trying to send them through. So whether it's initial information, more detailed information, whatever it is, it's worth understanding that a user might come to your site with zero outside knowledge.
Yeah, and we work with a lot of B2B sites, and it's the entry points are typically the homepage or like a resource or a blog post. And I'm definitely guilty of this. Your blog, and nobody really. I don't necessarily think it's a hard conversion. It depends on your business, but I don't think it's necessarily something where you're like, oh, hey, you love this blog post, now buy something from me. But it can happen. But what you have these micro conversions in mind, whether you want them to subscribe to your newsletter or whatever. But most blog pages are just atrocious. Like, it's nothing but links down the sidebar. It's really distracting. So you may be reading the content, but there's never a really sort of singular focus on a call to action or explore deeper or, hey, get more updates from us. That's really what you want people to do.
If you want to improve click-through from blog posts to the rest of your site by about 10%, get rid of the stupid tag cloud that you have that has 452 tags in it, because that really confuses people, and people get sort of they vapor lock from the number of choices.
Smart. And easy to test as well, right? If you've got a tool installed, and in fact, you can test it straight in GA, right? Watch the average number of pages visited for this landing page, and make some changes and see what happens. Probably got 5 or possibly 10 minutes left. Any other questions at the moment? And feel free to ask anything search-orientated, or hey, I've got this weird problem, and or probably something simple. I don't know. Go ahead.
So I'm in in-house marketing, and for years listening to all the SEO experts, everybody's saying get off of ranking reports, because of all the changes that Google's making, and not everybody's seeing the same rankings, and that's kind of been the theme that all the smart guys have been telling them. And recently, with the changes not provided, seems like there's a lot of people that have changed their story on that, and that might just be out of necessity. But I was just curious now with the current information we have and looking forward to what Google will be doing, and we know that it's going to keep evolving. How much are you guys going back to those ranking reports, and would you recommend reinvesting and using and creating reporting and infrastructure around that, or would you really just keep with the same tune of we've got to find other ways of going forward?
I think we'll have different answers from a few people here. So, Ben, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. I was just going to say, I think it's mostly just grasping for the familiar. You know, in a lot of ways, it's terrifying. And you know, when you, as an SEO, you may have been focused on like 3 different things, or one thing, keywords, right? But I mean, you got links and all these other things that you're trying to accomplish based on that one piece of data. So people automatically, like, you know, rankings reports, it's not really the thing. Let's talk about content, let's talk about strategy, et cetera. But God, what do I report on all of a sudden? So you go back to rankings reports because it's familiar turf. But I think, you know, the rest of Google Analytics is big and scary, right? Like, and how do I tie that back to an SEO metric? And that's probably 80% of what's going on, if not 100.
Yeah, with ranking reports, I think they've always had a place. I think if you're looking at it and saying that there's no reason to use it, the chances are you weren't getting any rankings. So, but that would be played out by your analytics, which would tell you that story. As far as looking at rankings, you know, again, Google provides data in Webmaster Tools that you can go and look at. So if it's just looking for sort of aggregate data, you know, yes, everyone wants to be number 1, but realistically, nobody is number 1 all the time outside of possibly brand searches. So when you're thinking about it from that perspective, you've got to look at, yes, rankings are important, but it's what happens afterwards that really matters.
The only reason we track rankings at this point is, well, either the client just demands it or reputation management. I mean, the thing I would say about search is the thing I've always said, which is do that which is future-proof. Google could make it much more difficult to scrape rankings and get that data, just like they've made it much more difficult to track keywords. You want to be doing the things that if Google next year decided to print every page or display every page backwards, it does not matter, because the things you're doing build value both from a search and from an overall marketing perspective. So, you know, again, having, you know, not having crappy content, making sure your site's fast, those will all help you no matter what Google does. And building a strategy around rankings is a mistake because they're just not consistent. They're going to become more and more inconsistent. And if you do believe that Google's hitting SEOs directly with some of these changes, the next thing they will do is make it next to impossible to scrape Google rankings.
There's some interesting fallacies around ranking reports as well as just caring about rankings, which is that, like you say, the rankings change constantly. Personalization, location, and other factors will mean they change constantly. But also, there are probably things that are way more impactful than being number 1. You know, blended search stuff can have a big difference. Even you know, having a face next to your results, or having a video snippet next to your results, can be phenomenally impactful. Moz had the great example of they ranked 1, 2, and 3 for Learn SEO at one point, I think, and number 3 had a little video thumbnail next to it, and that got more clicks than number 1 and 2 combined. And I would way rather have the number 3 or 4 ranking with a video thumbnail, or the number 3 or 4 ranking with my face next to it, than a higher ranking in plain black text. But it's a good question. Anything else from anybody? Go ahead. Come up to the mic, and then we'll you can awkwardly.
We're just
squeeze
waiting
past.
for someone to trip. That's why we want everybody doing this.
Hi, I was just wondering if you guys use Bing or Baidu tools at all to assess the organic key phrases.
No. Well, that's me, but go ahead.
No, we use Bing Webmaster Tools, and we do look at traffic from Bing. We just, you know, it's a very small percentage, a very small sample, so you want to be pretty cautious about it.
Bing Webmaster Tools is great.
Yeah, then I don't know if this is where you were going, but as far as correlation between Bing and Google, we've seen it vary really wildly, checking different accounts. So I guess some sites and brands, you'll find that you can almost use Bing as a proxy if that's what you're trying to do, to get an idea of the types of keywords going to specific pages. But a lot of the time it is really not a good correlation at all. So you can look back at your own data when you did have that data provided by Google and see if it was something that applied for your site or that you could even use as a proxy.
One of my favorite Microsoft tools actually has been the Ad Center plugin for Excel, and when we were able to quickly use that to pull in a bunch of data. And they had some pretty good demographic stuff in there as well, and yeah, it was quite interesting to look at breakdown of different terms by age or sex, and that was quite insightful, quite fun. There's possibly better ways to do that now, but yeah, it was interesting data coming through Ad Center as well. So it's completely unfair of me to say I've never touched Microsoft tools, but yeah. Go ahead. What? Awesome.
So scary.
Yeah. Was there anything else you guys wanted to add on the stuff we talked about? There was no. Fantastic. Well, these guys will be around all day, and you can grab them over lunch and coffee, and probably this evening. I don't know what the plans are, but yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Ian, Ben, and Stephen, and thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.